Good time of day to all of you, my friends, here on the Internet Chess Club. This is Grandmaster Alex Shermalinsky, and I'm glad to be back after almost a month absence. And, well, I hope you guys enjoyed the chess. During that period, obviously, the big one was the Grenka Classic and yet another triumph by world champion Magnus Carlsen. This is what we're going to talk about today. Well, in case you were wondering where I've been all this time, well, I actually traveled to Europe. After some stopovers, I ended up in the island of Rhodes, which is Greece, off the Turkish coast, where the FIDE World Senior Team Championship was held. I'm happy to report that the US team defended their title we won last year in Dresden. Even with more convincing result, we scored 17 match points out of 18 possible, only surrendered one tie and finished 3 points ahead of the next team, which was surprisingly Italy. Yeah. In the meantime, well, all the players on the US senior team ended up with individual medals on their boards. Shabalov won gold on the top board. I played the reserve board, but I also won gold. The rest of the team, Benjamin Novikov and Elvest, had to be content with bronze medals. Okay, let me see. Can you guys even see me? You know, I have this commercial with Garry Kasparov. Oh, skip ad. Oh, thank you. All right, anyway, so I forgot. Okay, hello. I actually was thinking of having a show about the tournament I played in, but then there is just too many things to do, too many events to cover, so I suppose that, well, I will just write an article for ICC. And also some of you that follow the chess internet probably saw my reports. I published 3 of those on ChessBase site. Anyway, let's go to, well, top-level chess and talk about Magnus Carlsen, of course. Now, what happened with Magnus? How was he able to erase the past 3 years of mediocrity by his standards? Well, indeed, in 2016, 17 and 18, Magnus was not dominating world chess the way he did in the previous years. Probably his last year of a complete domination was 2015. Well, there was a moment at 2014 Sinquefield Cup when Fabiano Caruana got off a blazing start of 7 out of 7. But even with that, you know, he was probably good 30 points behind Carlsen at that time. I don't recall exactly. But Carlsen was in the stratospheric region of 2880. And Caruana got to 2850, then he dropped down, and the gap was big. Yet, Carlsen had these 3 years of so-so results. Therefore, 2 world championship matches, and which, if you of course remember, he managed to win total of 1 game in 2 matches and 24 games. Now, what happened? How come Magnus is Anand and Sweet were too old, Germans too passive and too young? No, right. Well, maybe of this tournament we could make some statements as such. But it's not just one tournament. Carlsen won all 3 tournaments he played in 2019, all in absolutely dominating fashion. And you can see, oops, no, this is the wrong one. Wrong scene. You can see how his rating climbed up. When he played Caruana, they had almost the same rating. It was 28-30, right? So Carlsen gained 45 points. In 3 tournaments. He's adding about 15 points per tournament. Well, the lucky part, no, I don't know. Better be lucky than good, but he's good. They also say that the top players make their own luck. I mean, I personally think that there is a marked change in Carlsen's approach to chess. In the past 3 years, and I'm talking maybe even before, but before it was working. But in the past 3 years, his old approach of basically treating every position like the one that needs to be simplified stopped working. At least not to the results that he had before and he expected to get. Well, him chasing queen trades all over the board, got old, and his opponents adjusted. I think that Carlsen is playing completely different chess now. He is playing dynamic chess with all the trimmings over there. Well, strategy and tactics. Well, he's playing full-scale chess now. That's something that he didn't do in the past. No, maybe he didn't have to until 2015. He got by his tremendous technique and his willpower and ability to sit there and play long games. Now, no, he did have some long games at the start of the tournament, but once he got going, he started winning games in the middle game. As for the hungry players in Shenzhen, I didn't really follow this tournament because I was a little busy with my own chess. But to be honest, I'm not sure if you could take, for example, Dmitry Yakovenko and say, okay, he's a hungry player. Well, I mean, obviously, he could play well, but the tournament didn't work out very well for him. Yuan Yi was in bad form. As far as other guys, Carlsen played Ding Liren already. Not as many times, of course, as he played these other guys. And indeed, maybe you're making a good point. I tend to agree with you in the sense that, like some champions of the yesteryear, eventually they kind of tame their opposition. By playing them a lot, playing same tournaments together, they're better players, right, the champions. So basically, what happens then, they establish their domination. Kasparov did the same thing with the generation of younger players than he was. Gelfand, Shirov, Ivanchuk, Anand, Topalov. The only guy he couldn't really kind of bend to his will was Kramnik. Kasparov didn't have a dominating score against Kramnik, even before their match in London, year 2000. In Carlsen's situation, he dominates everybody. In tournament chess, 2019 for sure. Now, of the players, if you look at once again at this top 10, there is only one guy that still keeps a positive score against Carlsen, and they haven't really played a whole lot in tournaments together. It's Jan Nepomniachtchi. Now, there is a little bit of history between the two because they were same year of birth, 1990, and they played in junior tournaments together. And I guess at that time, it wasn't clear which one was a better player, but obviously by the time Carlsen was about 18, 19, he moved up. There were different reasons why Nepomniachtchi could not follow the same curve, but he's there, and now as they're significantly older now and pushing 30. At least Nepomniachtchi is the only guy of the top players. And I could extend the list, to more than just 10 players. Could probably add a few more. That hasn't been really beaten to submission by Carlsen yet. Now it may happen as they play together in this Grand Chess Tour that's about to start later this month. Svidler, by some miracle, had a positive score, but they haven't really played a whole lot. Svidler did not enjoy many invitations to top tournaments, and he was not part of this inner circle of the Grand Chess Tour, including Sinquefield Cup and all that, like, okay, I understand. Well, the story between Carlsen and Svidler is more like the positive score that Boris Gulka had over Garry Kasparov. And they have about the same difference in age. It's 14 years, right? Yeah. Okay, such things sometimes happen, and but they, no, it's small sample, as they say, small sample. All right. Once again, I wanna reinstate, that Carlsen did make adjustments. I was talking about this. People were asking what would happen if Carlsen loses a world championship match. Is it possible to add a picture to the chat? I'm not sure, really. I mean, I don't know the YouTube rules about this. I don't know. I'm not sure. Well, Alessandra, I don't know. Maybe it's 4-0. I mean, I know that he won one game, but they played so few games, particularly in Classical, so I don't know. Carlsen skipped the Grand Chess Tour last year when Nepo played over there. Now Carlsen's gonna play every tournament, at least, what the schedule allows of the Grand Chess Tour. Let's see. Well, Nepo has certain qualities that could make it challenging for Carlsen. Because Nepo is all about concrete tactical play, and he calculates variations very fast, and if anything, he is probably a little faster player than Carlsen. And so, don't know. Nepo, sometimes he can miscalculate, but, well, clearly Nepo is not infallible. But it would be interesting to see. He does play a little differently, indeed. But then again, like, can he do this? I mean, I'm not sure. Well, one thing going against Nepomniachtchi is that he's not younger than Carlsen. Usually dominating champions like this, as history tells us, can only be brought down to earth by a younger challenger. This is not the case. They're the same year. Well, I don't know about the free spirit to care, Well, people tend to grow. Well, I mean, you know me, you watch my videos, I seem to be a responsible individual, whatever, a taxpayer, law-abiding citizen. I wasn't always like this. Nepo maybe took his sweet time to grow. Maybe indeed, he is more determined to try to achieve the most in chess. At least, well, by his own admission, he cannot play video games to any kind of level because he said his reflexes are too slow now. He cannot compete with 16-year-olds. Well, I mean, what do I know? I know nothing about video games. Yeah, nice name for laziness and lack of work ethic, Well, you tell me about that story of my life. No, well, at least first half of my life. I'm trying to make up for it. Funny, like I always tell people when they ask me, well, when are you going to retire? And I tell them, I took my retirement early. I retired in my 20s. So 10 years of retirement, and then I think I got at least I tried to get my stuff together more or less. All right. Now, okay, let's talk about the games. Now, Magnus's tournament started with this wild encounter against the youngest player in the tournament and obviously a great talent, Vincent Keimer. I don't even know, like, it's such a long game. Okay, I'll try to identify key moments there. So first of all, the openings Carlsen play now. Well, that change actually started before the World Championship match with Caruana. To me, probably Magnus realized that he cannot play the way he played in those 3 years. Now, he started from scratch. He ditched e4, e5, and introduced Sveshnikov, reintroduced, he used to play it before, reintroduced Sveshnikov into his repertoire, and I think that was a turning point. He got the taste of playing those middle game positions with unbalanced pawn structure, because before that it was like every game of Carlsen would be e4, e5, with the d file open, with the exchange of the pawns one way or another, and then some maneuvering. It's not like he's bad at that. He's the best player with fixed pawn structures. We'll talk about this later today. But no, even the best player in such situations cannot win every time, because there are limited possibilities. And Nepo plays very fast. And now he feels liberated, because the Sveshnikov liberated him. These positions that he had 4 times in the match against Caruana, the positions by his own admission, Carlsen considered somewhat worse for black, but he said they're easier to play, maybe from his perspective. And indeed, so far, nobody was able to put any dent on Magnus Sveshnikov. Now, we can blame they're sticking to that knight d5 line, which was never really considered, the top line against the Sveshnikov. Magnus has not been tested yet, in other topical variations of the Sveshnikov. Some of them, no, there could be some things there, but okay, we will see in future games. And now, so this success with the Sveshnikov liberated Magnus mentally. So he doesn't have to play answer d4 with d5 and e4 with e5. Now he feels he can play any opening. Now clearly here going against this young kid. No, right. e5. I mean, seriously, right? The combination of e5, c5. It's an old Benoni thing. How does it fit into the King's Indian concept? The d6 pawn is somewhat weak. There are some variations where a black in the classical King's Indian later, after putting his pawn on f4, may play c5. Well, they're not considered very reliable. No, because of the weakness of the pawn on d6. Alright, so we're looking at this situation, and he captured. No, one good thing for black is that they avoided having this bad knight on e7, right? That pieces, well, it can only be used once the attack gets rolling, coming to g6 and h4. Otherwise, it's very awkward on e7. And so in this situation, I don't know if white could be successful necessarily by playing the move f4. But no, f4 is still an interesting move. Obviously, the main issue, like that in this situation, black can play g5 and then try to play f4. This is not the end of the world, White can even undermine with g3. There are some possibilities of this risky but very active play from white. I mean, there are different plans in this position. A lot of people probably wouldn't hurry, removing the knight from f3, in the sense that black really cannot go f5 and allow knight g5, knight e6. Not with the pawn on c5, the white squares would be very open. So maybe just wait black may be forced to play h6. But those are details, nuances that are more suitable for a very experienced player. Now, question is, to me, if Carlsen is going to play this kind of stuff, the King's Indian variety positions against everybody. Well, maybe not. He has a wide opening repertoire. But he chose wisely, because Keimer, being only 14 years old, clearly could not be that well versed in this kind of thing. Alright, so this is how the game went, and some people would say that knight d3 is a typical mistake. It goes back to some old games of Petrosian, and I think even Tal with the black pieces. White needs to play one little move to protect the knight on c3 to be able to recapture with a piece. It could be queen c2, it could be bishop d2. Probably queen c2 is the move. No, black in such situations, if he goes e4, he also has to worry about the violent move g4. You know, this is the thing that could rip the position open, because white has little more space and he can bring the pieces quicker to the king side. Well, I don't know. Well, maybe indeed he took... Well, maybe he took more risk in this game, strategically, with his choice of opening than he would normally do. I agree with that. But anyway, it worked out, because the kid automatically went here, and I guess maybe he was a little surprised with capture, but this capture is, as I said, the idea goes back to the times of Petrosian and even Tal, who played it. Now, the idea of this move is not only create obstacles on the path of the white bishop. In some ways, white wishes he didn't have the pawn on c3, then he could make a battery on the long diagonal. But also, very importantly, it removes one attacker against the e4 pawn, and makes it more difficult for white to play g4. Well, the resulting position is probably known to be about equal, but it's considered very safe for black, with some possibilities of playing on the queen side. And Khammer played reasonably. I didn't really analyze anything. I'm personally not convinced about this plan with bishop a4. I think Carlsen just wanted to create a situation where he could play with knights against white's somewhat restricted bishops. But on the other hand, it kind of helped white to prepare g4. Well, the kid certainly played with gusto here. And then he went g4. I mean, the position is rather balanced, because white is probably not that much interested in capturing on f5, because his own king is in trouble. At g5 seems like a very positive advance, but no, keeping the position close certainly suits the knights. No, Alessandro, I don't think so. Usually black struggles in such positions, and if he cannot do bishop takes c3, because he really is hard to stop g4. And black often is even willing to take on f4. Accept this isolated pawn on f5, put the knight on f5, and try to play maybe more of a tactical way. I think it would be more difficult to Carlsen, because despite his shift towards sharper positions, Magnus is still a kind of guy that's more comfortable with fixed pawn structure. When pawn breaks are present, he isn't so comfortable. He doesn't feel in control. Now, my advice to every player who plays Carlsen, young or old, and whatever, just don't let him fix the pawn structure. Keep some flexibility, keep some breaks in the position. And also, obviously, you have to keep an eye on Carlsen's king. As all great players, since they lose so rarely, they tend to underestimate the danger to his king. If you remember Carlsen's recent losses, it's already been quite a long time. He lost to Bu, got eliminated from World Cup knockout, got checkmated. Maybe that's the only way to beat Carlsen, I don't know. Yeah, against Meyer, we'll get to this game. Yeah. Okay, anyway, let's go quick, because I really... this was all interesting, but Carlsen keeps control. Even the pawn on g6, right, that looks so great, but... I don't know if... maybe the problem with this move was this answer. And then you stick your rook to g5, and then he plays this. I'm not sure exactly what's happening here, that by some miracle that knight on g7 saves the king from checkmate. And No, white is having a little hard time bringing the other rook into the mix, and black can always play knight g4 check, and then maybe capture with the f pawn, and try to blockade on f5. This is a very tricky position. I don't know. I don't particularly like the white queen on h2, but maybe I'm blundering into something. I'm not sure. But anyway, I gotta give full credit to this kid, because he played interesting moves. So he wants to bring the queen to h4. He wants to checkmate Magnus. Magnus has to run back. So the position is roughly balanced, but no, somehow he failed to protect his pawn on g6. Maybe he missed a moment when he really had to go h5. Could he go h5 here? h4, I mean, here, to play h5. At least he would secure the situation. It's still not clear how white makes any progress. He probably can't. If black wishes, he can just block the position entirely, and it'd probably be a draw. But anyway, somehow the g6 pawn was lost. And now it seemed like that Magnus had to be winning, right, up the pawn. But surprisingly, no, not so clear. Maybe that was certain awkwardness in the position of his pieces, but... Or... Maybe he felt that he shouldn't trade rooks. Maybe he thought it would be hard to win, but... No, they couldn't take the h5 pawn, obviously, because of some bishop takes a7. Back and forth, and then the a pawn was created. No, well, on the one hand, you know, black obviously has a passed pawn now, and it played some part later in the game. But it also opens up some possibilities of active play for white, and so he had to be a little careful because of this invasion. His pawn on f5. This all came sort of by force, and since the black queen is tied down to protection of the f6 square, because white would have perpetual check, so you can't really bring the queen over to a8 or b8. Wouldn't do. So Magnus found this trick. Well, he's willing to trade his a pawn for the c3 pawn and then invade with the knight. Wow, he's hoping to keep everything protected with his two pieces. Knight on g8 and queen on f8. But not so simple, because the kid went bishop h3. And now queen g7 was absolutely forced, because if you let him take, you know, then mate will be threatening anyway. So they played this. First line. Alright, so they played 65 moves, and I mean, I gotta give credit to Vincent Keimer. At 14 years old, he put up the best resistance against Carlsen among all the players in this tournament. I mean, Anand defended a very tough position. Corana was worse. But I mean, to play this well against world champion for 65 moves. But here he went terribly wrong. And I think I can offer an explanation of what happened. I think in his mind, the young Vincent Keimer simply didn't consider ever trading his dark square bishop for a black knight, because he felt that his remaining bishop would be very bad and all his pawns would be on light squares. And he felt that, oh, I would always lose this. No, in fact, he wouldn't, because there was this particular line, which is very straightforward line, by the way. I'm gonna play it for you. Stay with me. Oh, yeah, I don't know about g6. I didn't really analyze this. He released the tension. Does it deserve a question mark or not? I really don't know. I can't tell. But watch this. This is the key line. So on this move, he would hit the knight, and clearly that's the only way for the knight to go, and he hits the pawn on f4, threatens fork. Now no choice but to take. So the kid took one look at this position. Maybe he saw bishop f3 and he said, nah, I can't play this, I'm always gonna lose. He dominates on dark squares, I have no targets to attack. Wrong, you do. There is one good thing about white's position, it's advanced pawns. d5 and h5. Meaning that when black gets tired of enjoying his superiority on dark squares and wants to actually win the game by capturing something, that's when white is going to get counterplay. Watch this. Where do you go now? First line to analyze is king g5. Counterattack comes immediately. I go with the king. You take. I take. Well, the king is tethered to the knight, so you can't go back with the king yet. You gotta move the knight away, but then you're late, protecting d6. Or you could try this. You could try to protect with the knight. But clearly knight e8 wouldn't do because of king d7 and knight f5. The bishop will attack the knight. Now, if you continue this line all the way, you can see that both sides queen. At the same time, black is going to be on the move, but no, he doesn't have anything. He doesn't have anything in this situation. This has to be a draw, and I think even black has to be little accurate in the resulting position, perhaps. Okay, let's run it again. I mean, this is sort of like the only line really that white can calculate. This is what bothers me. I mean, obviously this show is not about a 14-year-old player who, you know, faced such opposition best in the world and for the first time in his hopefully long and productive career. But no, the failure to calculate, follow through the main line is alarming, to be honest. I guess he made this assumption that, as I said before, that he simply cannot possibly play this position with the bad bishop. Hey, bad bishops protect good pawns. Alright, let's try this. What's next? I'm coming to c6. Are you kidding me? You're gonna have to stay with your king on e5. So anyway, Keimer had a draw. Instead he went, this is a very bad move. Well, he tried to execute the same idea, but he's dropping pawns and he's not really getting a whole lot because his bishop cannot come around and hit the d6 pawn. What was the point of protecting, saving this bishop when it cannot do anything but to sit there? So the e4 pawn is an extra pawn and the h pawn began to move. Oh, the game is lost. They probably played another, maybe less than a dozen moves, yeah. It's piece of cake, so now obviously it's too late to take on f6 because the two pawns will easily split the white bishop. I cannot stop both. It's not necessarily about winning this bishop for the pawn. It's about pushing the h pawn as quick as you can. No, as Carlsen demonstrates. No, I don't know if king c8 was really played on the board or maybe the kid resigned, but no, clearly his d pawn is going nowhere because of knight e6 and e and h pawns decide. Besides, no, this was more of an old Carlsen win, right guys? Endgame play, patient play, but no, still, the opening was something that we hadn't seen a whole lot until that change that happened in in Magnus's chess, not by accident, obviously. That was his plan. And he now enjoys the fruit of this. No, Keimer probably grew up, well, I don't know, and then speaking English since kindergarten or whatever, nursery, like, I mean, it's in Europe these days. Well, I don't know if he was thinking win. I don't think so when he went back. I'm sticking with my explanation. He simply could not wrap his mind around the idea of partying with the dark square bishop. His coach is Peter Leko, right? So Leko was always about firm grasp of positional elements. And for sure, he taught the kid, always pay attention to pawn structure and all that, But no, sometimes, I mean, it's the growing pains, right? Sometimes there's over reluctance or maybe even too much respect to those factors. And concrete analysis obviously can beat anything in chess. Well, I think White was forced to change queens after queen g7. There was mate threatening, queen takes c3, and I mate you either on b2 or b4. You really have no choice. I don't want to go back to this, Let's say goodbye to this game and look at something else. We have a lot of games to cover. No, Caruana and Vallejo. No, I understand they do these things well. You gotta get them while they're young. Who knows this? This kid Keimer in 4 years may be as good as Carlsen, and then no, you won't be able to score any wins against him. Anyway, really a great game. So we move into the second half of the tournament. So Magnus, after he won another game, he beat Vallejo in round 2. It was even more ridiculous. It was really a drawish endgame, some pawnless endgame, and he was able to win. No, ridiculous in a sense, like that was just so Magnus that clearly Paco had a draw somewhere, but no, he misplayed it. Another 90-move win. So Carlsen did that, then he made draws. He couldn't beat Anand. It probably hurt him a little bit because he really had an overwhelming position against Anand. And at that time, Anand was doing really, really well in the tournament. He was also at +2. So they were co-leaders, but Carlsen wasn't able to win. Anand, however, kind of didn't have a good second half of the tournament, lost a couple of games. Particularly surprising was his loss with White to Georg Mayer. So anyway, Anand ended up with 50%, but hey, like when I can relate to this. He held his own against this crowd, mixed crowd of some of the top players, Caruana, Vasheva Graf, Aronian, or at least formerly top players, and the mix of local guys, So Anand held his own, not a bad result for him. He may have dropped, a few rating points, but no big deal. To me, like, of the people who scored 50%, it's Levon, must be the most disappointed. Levon really didn't have anything going throughout the entire tournament. He had a nice win with white pieces against Svidvar in the line of the Roy Lopez that Anand knows it very well, and he's known to be the man who introduced it. There was a little bit of reverse psychology on part of both players. It's almost like if you look at this game and the names of the players, you would think it's a mistake. It's Svidvar White as an F4 player and Aronian Black. Levon is trying to make some changes. He's trying real hard. He plays E4 now in practically every game. No, but this, unlike Carlsen's change, which seems kind of organic and very natural, Levon's is almost like he's grasping at straws. Okay, so let's look at this game. Now, this is the start of the second half of the tournament. Even when Carlsen was in bad form in some other events in the past 3 years, he would always play stronger after the rest day because he had a difficult time getting into the tournament. I guess maybe because he wasn't really preparing or doing a whole lot of chess before, and he would play himself into some kind of form. No, well, Naidic, with Arkady, he was always a very capable player. He just has the style that causes him sometimes to miscalculate or go too far. He's a very dangerous player. He's an attacking player. This is Latvian school of chess. You know that Naidic comes originally from Latvia. He's been living in Germany since he was a teenager. But there is something over there. There's a little bit of Tal influence in Arkady's chess, and he's a very dangerous player. And we played this line that Anand kind of forgot. White accepts 2 pawns or 1 pawn he accepts out of the 4 knights opening. And I think Anand maybe forgot his lines there or got something confused. He wasn't really ashamed to lose this with black to Naidic, but losing with white to Mayer was rather strange. So anyway, let's go to this game. Speaking of Georg Mayer, he lived in the United States for some time. He went to Webster University, although he didn't graduate. I think he dropped out. Played some tournaments in the US. Then he lived in Sweden with his girlfriend, as a daughter of Inna, daughter of Evgeny Agrest, formerly Russian grandmaster who has been living in Sweden for a long time. So Georg is, he's a sort of a German school, like very solid, fundamental, good endgame technique. Tends to lose his way in wild complications. And also, maybe Georg is a little too conservative in his opening choices. All right, so Magnus is going for it, right? King's Indian. No, I've got to tell you, if one thing that you need to do when a superior player surprises you with his opening choice, you got to go for main lines. When you play main lines, when you play c4 here and then knight c3 and whatever happens, you're standing on the shoulders of giants. You sit there and think, how would Botvinnik play here? There's some other guys, there are a lot of great experts, and this g3 King's Indian with white. Well, Botvinnik obviously comes to mind first. Well, you've got to go c4. Georg, save the other things, the knight c3 and knight d2 and rook e1, whatever, when you play some random people. Hoping to outplay Carlsen from a random position. I don't know. I firmly advocate sticking to theoretical lines, when you white in particular. Against the great player who is in experimental mood and goes somewhere. Well, who knows what he would play? Maybe c5, maybe knight c6, maybe knight d7, e5. But no, let him choose. White is going to be okay against all of them. Yeah, look, it's a global world, guys, people move about, whatever. I guess, I don't know, nationality and ethnicity, it's the two things that often get confused, but whatever. But, he may represent Azerbaijan, he can never be an Azeri. It doesn't work like this. My opinion. Okay, all right. Well, I'm stepping into dangerous territory, so no. But, all right, let's keep that. So anyway, it goes b3. Well, it's not like b3 is such a bad move. White is known to obtain a fairly decent game in reply to this. They go like bishop to b2, and then they go stuff like c4. It's sort of like the symmetrical English, but now the bishop supports the pawn. The knight stays on b1. It's alright. But Magnus surprised them with the move b5. Well, John, this is... In some ways, yeah. I agree with you. I can feel sometimes the same. Yeah. All my work is online. I could really be anywhere. I just spent 2 weeks on the island of Rhodes. What if I don't know, ask for political asylum there, went to Greek authorities and say, look, I'm like whatever, I cannot return to the United States because I feel threatened by whatever. Maybe they would grant me an asylum, and if I could prove that I can support myself, maybe nothing would change, right? I would be talking to you from the island of Rhodes. Germany without gems and chess resources never produced a world beater. I mean, what about the English? I mean, there are cultures with rich chess tradition, but I mean, on the other hand, like Norway suddenly popped up with Magnus Carlsen. Maybe Keimer is the guy, who knows? LeBron was a capable player, of course, but of course you cannot compare any player from Germany with Robert Hübner. Hübner was a true world championship candidate. Not the challenger, he never got this far, but he was there. He was top 10 in the world, clearly. Which Eric, as a nice company he may be, I'm referring to LeBron, never was. So what about this move b5? I mean, the idea to play b5 when white delays c4 and d4 openings is very well known. Black can even play it on move 2, right? b5 here. That has been played. Here it seemed a bit outrageous because the white knight can move away and open the bishop on the rook. But you have to be careful. This is a bad move. Takes over there. Now capture on e5 is harmless, but this is even worse. Black actually plays c6 and traps that bishop. That goes that. Not a good situation for white. He's gonna lose that bishop for the c6 pawn, and the two minor pieces will be more important than rook and 2 pawns, because the rooks are late entering play, and there's gonna be enough pieces left on the board to take away all the infiltration possibilities from the white rooks. Okay, that part is clear. I mean, how to react to b5. No, well, this was recommended to put the knight on d3, which is kind of cute, but I don't know really what it does. Oh, maybe not so bad. I found this interesting because I want to provoke b4. Put the knight on c4 and then undermine with a3. So I think that could give white a very good position. Yeah, Germany won the European Championship in a big upset. No, well, yeah, well, Adams, I agree with you that of later generation, but arguably Hübner and his position in chess hierarchy was not lower than Adams's position. But, no, okay, it's a question, of course. So I'm looking at this knight a3 and if before then knight c4, but then again, black of course can play a6, and now it's c4. I don't know what I'm trying to get out of this. Say in reply to this, am I gonna take with the pawn and leave my knight on a3 in a strange position? I might, because I'm grabbing the b file and you're not gonna be able to oppose. I might sort of sacrifice my knight. Opening of the b file could be important. Of course, the bishop can come out to f5, but then maybe, well, there will be some problems on the diagonal, clearly. I can also take this way, and then white gains the tempo compared with what happened in the game, because black played a6, which is pretty much a useless move. So I'm thinking maybe Carlsen would have played that, Then maybe you go knight e1 and try to put some pressure and threaten this capture on b5 twice. Kind of makes more sense. I like knight a3. But Georg, well, he has this tendency to play just obvious moves in the opening that feels safe to him. He got this, now capture. With the bishop on b2, now capturing this way just doesn't do anything, right? White is not ahead of black as far as grabbing the b file. So he went for this. Georg likes to have protected squares for his pieces. All good. Well, on the other hand, he ended up playing some kind of English where black got b5 and trade for free without really trying. So he doesn't have firm control over the d5 square, so he's nowhere near the Maroczy bind, which is known to be the best setup against all these dragon formations. And the next move, remarkable move from Carlsen, indicates that Carlsen is fully intending to play for a win. He's looking to prepare e5 and d5 somehow. Last year there was a game where Timon played knight e4, but I think it helped White to equalize. It's not like knight e4 is a bad move, but Carlsen's move is just more indication that he's ready to fight. Nice move, knight d7. But black has some problems moving the pawns in the center because they can come under attack. So rook a6, this is an interesting maneuver. He brought his queen over there. And in such situations, both sides are interested in trading for the opponent's fianchetted bishop. Well, and that's exactly what happened a couple of moves later. And Georg played that, so he agreed to this, but now the knight on g2 is bad. But actually I like to move knight a7. I think he's trying to interfere with black's plans. Otherwise, I mean, what do? If you do this, then possible is that. You go back and then that. Black probably seizes the initiative here. This is a nice try. But perhaps would be better to return. The difference being that on this, and that, White keeps the knight here on g2, and he can play the sharp move f4. No, right, I really cannot cheer for White's position here, because I understand that, no, for the middle game play, he lacks a central pawn, and he's kind of leaving his e-pawn behind and opens up his king and surrenders the e4 square. But he's fighting for the d4 square. As Fischer famously said, you want to get squares, you gotta give squares. He's not a professional player anymore. Anymore is the key word, If he started working anywhere outside of chess, it happened very recently, maybe a year or two. His style was always the same. Now, I'm glad for Georg, that he found something, and he seems always a nice, clear-cut guy, who would fit in this corporate world perfectly, and I wish him best of luck with that. Anyway, about the move queen c2, it just allowed black to go forward, and now, so you see how Carlsen took over the game. He gave the pawn. It's unbelievable. So he gives the pawn, gives White as two connected passers, but the knight on a5 is stuck, and he's grabbing the c file and pushes forward. Then he played a remarkable move, and great move, knight c3. Not too many people would play that. You trade your active knight in the middle for the bishop that would hardly move and was blocking the rook. Yet it's the right move because he needs this invasion with his own rook and control over the dark squares, which he would underline best with the move d4. I think the reason he didn't play this was simply because he thought that the other move was better. He played bishop f8. However, I believe d4 was a stronger move. Now, if white tries this, then that knight comes to d5. Now, one piece stands badly, your whole game stands badly. You can easily imagine a situation if that knight could jump to e4 or whatever, c5, then the white would take over the game and really promote his pawns. But he can't. When it comes to this, he's gonna be made extremely uncomfortable here. I mean, you gotta protect the pawn on a4. But this is terrible. Your self-pinion and queen d5 is coming up. Pawns want queen. Rook c1. It probably loses to some kind of knight d3, or I can simply play queen d5 and take with that pawn. Maybe... Okay, but probably knight d3 is more effective. Well, I shouldn't be picky. But when I can win a queen, I should win a queen. Here is the problem with this, that Georg missed this move. I think there was some talk after this game that white would be in danger in this continuation. Indeed, well, the knight has improved, but it also abandoned the king. And this is the line I think that the players discussed. However, mate is threatening, but it's not super convincing. There is this, and you take, and then there is that. Black can take on f3 and gain one of the pawns back, and he would make threats against the white king, but I doubt he can checkmate. He will only have queen and bishop. Maybe it's not enough. Bishop g7 alternative can be met with queen e2. So if you take my knight, I take the rook. So actually the resulting variations do not support black's claim to advantage anymore. Well, e3 was bad, but how Carlsen refuted it, that was just amazing. He goes d3, clearly needs to maintain this pawn, but it looks a little shaky, right? Isn't this pawn gonna be lost? I guess not, because he found this brilliant tactical shot. Now, you ask me, did Carlsen see it? Moves before? I don't know. You can see a lot and fairly quickly. But then again, you know, when you're hot, you're hot. Well, you just sense that the right move is, and you play it, you know, and then miraculously everything works out. I mean, probably near every chess player experienced that. I experienced that too. In my case, it didn't last, and most people cases it doesn't last, you know. But no, well, with Carlsen, it's going on for ever since 2019 rolled in. Moves like knight c5, they're always there for him. Great move. Well, the point, of course, is to set him up for this, and the miserable knight has to give itself away, and then black wins. So there was no other choice, and now massive infiltration over there. Only move. Knight e6. Queen e1. No, this is the moment where Georg... I mean, they made the time control. I don't know how much time Meyer spent on his next move. I don't even know if he saw Magnus's reply. Maybe he just blundered. But after this move, the game is effectively over because, of course, white cannot take because the fancy queen and the white queen is under attack, and on the check, there's queen d8. So now you're down the queen now. Haha. Queen a1 was a mistake, it missed a forced win. Bishop h6. Oh boy, that's heavy. No, f4 clearly is a disgusting move that opens up everything and then white's hopeless. Well, yeah, look. Good thinking. So there is no hope in this. Takes. Check. It kinda looks bad. This, right? Threatening queen a1. Oh, I don't know. You're probably right. Well, for sure you're right. Alright, anyway, he played what he played. And reached his critical position, and king g2 was a blunder. Bishop takes b4, and game over. After that, however long it takes for Carlsen to win. After the game, Carlsen said something that his technique was not perfect, but no, well, once he secured this advantage with the d2 pawn, I think it was only a matter of time. Because white cannot trade queens, and without that he cannot bring the king over to overwhelm black with the attack against the d2 pawn. Well, yeah, blunder minefield, indeed. No, people, a lot of reasons for that. People want to play this 41st move to kind of to make sure, whatever, that they made the time control. Well, they want to play this move quickly to get away from the board or just to catch a breather. And my advice, and I've done it very many times, it's not against the rules to leave the board when you're on the move. Now, well, come on, you keep your score, whatever, 40 moves is made, you get up. And okay, the opponent may give you a sort of a quiz to look, where you're going, you're on the move. Now, well, you can even come to arbiter and say, well, excuse me, I'm leaving the board on my move. You can speak to the arbiter at any time, right? And you go to the bathroom and whatever, have a drink of water, or even walk around a little bit. It's not against the rules. Now, the USCF rules used to state that you cannot be absent from the board for more than 15 minutes when you're on the move. No, right, well, maybe so, but there was arbiter's discretion. I mean, I have been absent, for more than that, and believe me, I didn't go to McDonald's, There was once during the game, I actually felt violently sick, and then had to go to the bathroom, and I spent a good half an hour there throwing up and trying to clean myself up a little bit. Nobody forfeited me for this. Certainly nobody's gonna raise any stink, if you do this. Don't play your 41st move. But Winnick told you, hey, every Russian schoolboy knows, do not ever play your 41st move. Well, since you can defend it, maybe you can run forward. Now, there is a line here that probably causes white a lot of grief. That's knight c5. Now, you try to centralize the queen. I think that line is not computer checked. Then there is this one, and you cannot touch the knight on account of this strange pin on the queen. f2 is in trouble. Now, if you go this way, which is white's dream, of course, to trade queens, comes that one anyway. And if you do this, Powerful is bishop c5. Oh boy. I try to calculate the result in variations, but as I said, I haven't checked them with the computer, so I don't really know. I mean, the point was to take on f2, threatening d1. And you cannot touch the knight for the same move, d1. So apparently this is the only move, trying to activate this knight and push the pawn forward. Knight b6 trying to reach d7. It brings the knight back. Maybe to f6 or e5. Maybe white just cannot get there to support the b8 promotion to win the bishop. The black knight only 2 moves away. But I haven't really checked quickly. But okay, anyway, maybe the position was lost anyhow. Now look, once again, that's computers. Okay, well, guys, hear me out. Whatever it is, you know, like this, human mind works differently. If you blunder bishop takes b4, you can go home. Either you go home immediately because you resign in disgust, or you can just wiggle a little bit, but you're gonna lose the game anyhow. When you don't blunder this pawn, when you play b5, then there may be only one line for black that wins. The opponent may find it or may not find it. Well, this, even if you see everything, you see, okay, if I play b5, I lose. You still play b5. You still play b5. Now, it's kind of a bluff, it's a gamble. It's part of a chess game between two human players. Trust me, that's the only way. You can't allow him to play bishop takes b4. Clearly, he sees it. He played the last move, queen a1, to set it up. Whatever. Computers' first choice, the computers where they give extra value to minimize an opponent's advantage, but really, minimizing it to not too far, only to the extent that you don't resign right away, but it's just hopeless. You have no hope. Your counterplay is gone with the disappearance of the b pawn. Well, chess players since the times of whatever, since time forgot. Well, they were always a bit on the gambling side. You throw things in, and it works out. If you do it confidently enough, maybe the opponent. Well, yeah, granted, the kind of form Magnus Carlsen is in, knight c5, knight e4 would have been found. Fair enough, then I lose the game. Yet, he would have to calculate this whole thing with the capture on f2. No, indeed, the computers, they live in their own world. Well, I mean, the rules that they govern them, we can even understand them on some level, but we don't need to follow them. This is certainly not the way to play chess. All right. So anyway, I will skip you the rest of this game because after bishop takes b4, Carlsen won. I don't think he had a fortress. Okay, we could. I don't know what fortress can be here. Black hasn't even started. They're moving pieces about back and forth. Now he decided to. Okay, granted, this whole thing with bringing the king, it didn't work out. This is how he lost. It was actually brilliant from Carlsen to give the passed pawn and set up this winning threat of knight f3. And the white queen cannot go to safe place because he must protect c2. But I'm absolutely confident, that Carlsen would find a way through, one way or another. Okay. You guys were asking about Aronian, that game. Yeah. I'm still looking at the cross table. 7.5 out of 9. 1.5 ahead of Fabiano Caruana. 2.5 points ahead of third place. I mean, they've been beaten into submission. Well, Anand didn't really have a choice. Well, Anand was pushed against the wall and he just hanging there, the skin of his teeth. But Caruana going for a drawish line against Aronian. I don't know. I don't think he thought, that was over, the fight for first place. He secured his second place. No, well, drawing with Aronian doesn't cost him very many rating points. I think Fabiano wanted to go home. He's probably bewildered, One statement he made, Fabiano. As I said, I haven't been really following very quickly. I was busy with our tournament over there and all the festivities that was going on. But he said, I thought I had a good position. So they had another Sveshnikov knight d5, right? Played some knight b5 idea, I remember the game. Took with the c pawn, pushed it to b6. It was interesting. I thought I had a good position, but then a few moves later I had to defend, and I cannot understand why. Don't know. Maybe Caruana doesn't understand those positions very well, even after playing against Magnus in the match. It seemed like, floundering in those positions. Strangely, because Caruana's experience in playing against Naidorf, he always liked to play knight d5 and take with the pawn. So the pawn structure itself, is no stranger to him. It just... Maybe indeed it's just Carlsen. I think Fabiano is rather bewildered there and he's thinking, what's going on? How come this guy, that I had a chance of beating in the match, now is winning against everybody, and while I'm sitting there on my 28-19, he's 28-75. Insane. It can't be, right? I don't know. Well, where do you go from here, guys? What do you do when Carlsen became like this? Carlsen circa 2015, or arguably even better player. What do you do? What do you do? I mean, he should fight to catch up. No, he was a full point behind, right? Counting on Magnus losing with white, even to Vasheva Graf. Nah. In general, fight and try to catch up. No, Fabiano had... It's not like Fabiano just came up, right? Well, his highest ever rating was achieved live rating, kind of momentary thing after he won the 7 games in a row, Sinquefield Cup. It was 2014, it was almost 5 years ago. He was at 28.50. I mean, is there anything that makes you, me, Caruana, or anyone else believe that Fabiano can make it back to 28.50? Is he really so dominating over others? He has been a better player in 2017, oh, pardon me, in 2018 than others, but he wasn't like that in 2017. To me, it's more like fluctuations of form. I really don't see Caruana as undisputed number 2. He was, but before there were other people visiting number 2. Aronian was for many years. Caruana has been there longer than, say, Vasheva Graf or Wesley Saw. But is he so much better than... I mean, look at this, guys. Let's go to the rating thing. All right. There are pretty decent players, pretty much at 2760. I think number 11 is Radjabov, and then... Okay. Well, Kramnik we don't count anymore. There is Karyakin at 2750 something. Then there is, of course, Artemiev, but okay, Artemiev is the dark horse. We don't know. But I mean, okay, forget Carlsen. Suppose Carlsen takes a sabbatical now and whatever. Now, so Caruana is sitting there. Suppose he plays this tournament of, I don't know, top 10 players. Okay, Carlsen is not there, but say we add Karyakin in there with his 2750. So the average rating of this crowd is going to be around 2770. Now, Caruana would come to this tournament with the expected score of maybe about 57%, right? Out of 9. So his projected, is somewhere between 5 and 5.5. What do you expect him to do? To score 7.5 out of 9? He never will. He simply never will. It happened once in Sinquefield Cup, but it's just once. I simply don't see it, in Fabiano. Well, so I don't know how he's going to catch up. How he's going to become 28.75. I don't know. Well, if others improved with him, if everybody became 28.19, then gradually Fabiano could probably keep his edge of 50 points or so over the average top 10 guy, and then he gets to 28.50. But the problem is that these guys are nowhere near. They're not gaining rating points. They're not really improving. There is a little bit of back and forth fluctuation over there. Okay, you're right. The hope is for Carlsen to decline. Now, how can this decline be represented? Let's look what's ahead of us. Well, Carlsen is going to be involved in this Grand Chess Tour, which added some tournaments, and now they go to Africa, Abidjan, Cote d'Ivoire. What? No, that's Rapid and Blitz. Okay, well, Carlsen's the favorite. No, but it's not going to affect the classical chess situation. What's in classical? No, Norway chess. Okay. Carlsen's probably hungry to win it because one tournament he hasn't done very well in is his own Norway chess. Corano won it last year. Before that, it was Aronian. I don't know. I don't really see Carlsen collapsing. Because it's the same crowd, same people. I don't know. I think he's going to stick around. And if he's ever going to be any decline from this 28.75, it would probably be some 20 points, but not more. I don't know exactly where Magnus is planning to lose rating points. Sinquefield Cup. He's not going to lose points playing against same people. Well, we're not talking about like the decline, inevitable decline due to old age, poor health or whatnot. We're talking about form fluctuations. I think he got himself a pretty nice cushion, and he's going to be ahead by a good 50 points over everybody else for quite some time. Okay. Yeah, indeed, there's a classical event in Croatia, and it's a longer tournament, 12 rounds, but... Okay, well, let's not predict too much, but I think others, they need to worry about their own stuff, about qualifying for the candidates. Obviously, Caruana is there. Ding is most likely going to retain his position as number 3. They would be good enough to qualify by rating. Others, they have to go through the new series of knockout tournaments that begin in Moscow at the end of May. And there's going to be 3 more of those. So World Cup in September. I mean, anyway, until they sorted it out who gets into the candidates, who not, well, I think all other rating concerns and such, they go distant second. We will see. Alright, so I don't have much time. I have about 10 minutes. Let's look at this game. Carlsen Aronin. Alright, so the Vienna variation. Well, it was in Aronin's repertoire for a long time. It's a heavily researched line where, theoretically speaking, White really cannot prove his advantage, so it wasn't really a gamble on Aronin's part. Most likely he expected Magnus to go for this pawn sacrifice that lately has been scoring reasonably well for White, but Aronin knows it and probably had some prep. So instead bishop g5 was played, which is the main line of the Vienna. But as it went, instead of the standard move bishop takes f6, Carlsen played bishop d2. This may be, it's not really a novelty, but the kind of move Aronin didn't expect. Alright, you're in this situation, and bishop d2 was played, and you vaguely recall that on knight e4 they're gonna play queen g4. And you think, oh no, I cannot go there. The opponent obviously checked it all with the computer and all that, so well, here, and I do this, and rook f8, king d2. Now I have to think, I'm not sure what to do. Maybe I go knight c6, maybe I don't go knight c6. I can't go to this position, too dangerous. No, the position is dangerous, but Levon is quite a capable player, and he can create things, he can find things. At his best, he was able to confuse Carlsen himself. As far as walking into Carlsen's preparation, I don't really know. Why would Carlsen... I mean, he probably looked maybe a little bit, but Carlsen was never known for trying to catch his opponents into this. So there was one choice that Levon could have made. Oh, excuse me. But okay, he probably thought there was no need, so he castles. And indeed, there is no need. Now, White plays queen e2, must protect the pawn. e5 is a good move, knight there, back, castles. Critical moment of the game. White's plan most likely is to advance the c pawn. How? I looked at some possibilities. Well, he needs to do a lot of things. So he needs to move that bishop away, play bishop to e3, not to lose the e4 pawn in the process, but on this. Knight d7. To play the knight to b6, right? Possibly this. You probably don't want to trade for the white knight over there, it just facilitates white's play. But here you cannot get a grip on any squares, the pawn is going to c5. He played bishop g4. It's an attempt to solve this problem by the in-between tactical move there. I mean, there's great stuff, of course, on bishop f7, and then whatever, you have queen c4 and the pawns are falling, and indeed, you know, if white goes for this kind of stuff, even with the extra pawn, he may end up worse. But there is a huge downside to this bishop g4 as the game went. I mean, the bishop is out of position. Clearly, white is putting this pawn on c4. The bishop should be, after b6, coming to a6 to hit this pawn. For the rest of the game, Levon could not find any employment for that bishop. And it's not like it was a restricted piece. It wasn't. Just like the Svidor bishop on a2 in the next game that Carlsen won. Seemingly open piece, but it just doesn't work together with other pieces, doesn't do anything. No, Gustafsson is right. Nobody bothered, you know, to look at this. Since I'm supposed to suggest something, well, what I don't like about bishop g4 is that the bishop is just going to some wrong places. While f3 is generally very useful for white because they need to solidify the pawn structure to prepare bishop e3. Now, my suggestion is to play this. I want to play bishop e6. You're probably not surprised, right? Well, if you do this stuff, it's a different situation. Now, clearly, you know, I'm not going to send my bishop to God knows where. My bishop is coming to a6. Where it belongs, or counterplay against c4. The rook is quite in place. He is protected. This looks reasonable. If you don't do this, I'm going to play bishop e6. Strange. Anyway, this was a mistake. So, after the game, Carlsen made this comment. He said, I thought that black would play a5 a little earlier. It baffles me. I find a5 a terrible move. And it's not a decisive mistake in the sense that there is no forced win and whatever. Maybe computers wouldn't even criticize a5 that much. I find this a conceptual mistake, guys. Oh, Gustafsson is welcome to play it when he returns to chess. I mean, what works for Magnus Carlsen will not necessarily work for Jan Gustafsson. It's just a move, you know. Carlsen prepared very many moves that don't really refute anything. He's not interested in that. And he's smart enough to know it's impossible. It's just to send the game go into some direction that is not expected by his opponent. And count on his ability to find things over the board. Now, it's exactly what I'm referring to. Now, yeah, of course, white is very big on this move a5. But, no, the pawn on b6 would still be protected. And besides, well, black needs to look for ways to shatter this pawn structure. Like in this case, see, white has a lot of squares and important pawns to protect. Here he fails because the d5 pawn is not protected. When it's broken up like this, then the knight is real silly. And even if white has this nice pawns over there, well, he's not doing so well here, no. Mainly because of the terrible knight. Of course, white can play this, trying to do the similar thing I tried in the game. But it's far less clear. Far less clear. I think now this counterplay with f5, which Levon resorted to when he was already desperate and low on time, makes much more sense now. On this move, I got some queen g6 tempo. that could be used for attacking f3. I'm not sure how bad this move is. It's kind of self-opinion, but again, there is more life in the position rather than have this rigid pawn structure after a5. I think it's a serious mistake. Now, this whole thing was about what's going to happen after knight c5. So he played bishop to g6, and now Magnus switches over there. Why? No, because it's typical for Magnus and every strong player. Once they know they got a grip on the position, well, they don't really care long term. They don't really care to look for ways to immediately exploit the advantage. They mainly think prophylactically, like, what is my opponent going to do, because he wants to break out. And he controlled that. Found this maneuver with the... Well, this is a great maneuver. Now, the knight on b3 was influencing the c5 square, but it's also very, very good on d2 because it protects the pawn. And it frees up the rest of white pieces to gang up on b6. Now, what's white's plan? Why did, after the move rook c3, why did Aronian spend so much time and kind of flipped out and played the move f5, which was criticized by many? Now, well, truth to tell, I don't know if he had any recipe against this slow plan of putting pressure. Because at the right moment he will trade on c5. Okay, let's play some moves randomly. Here, there. Suppose black doesn't do anything. So you wait, right? Isn't this the right time to do it? If you trade queens, then you lose b6. Chop. I'm not gonna blunder rook takes d5, so I'm gonna play this. The knight does the job, and the bishop cannot attack c4. Basically, that answers once the b6 pawn is lost. It's not like Levon had an acceptable position and blew it by playing f5, which may be a conclusion if you look at computer evaluations. I think he chose a wrong plan and the position was really very difficult. And simple chess from Magnus Carlsen. No capture here on account of knight d2. h3. Just extra pawn. Won in a couple of moves. Easily. By the way, no trades. Carlsen feels very comfortable keeping pieces on the board. Of course, it wasn't very difficult here. Since the b6 pawn is falling and there is no counterplay, resignation came. Not a move too soon, guys. No, alright. So let's round this up. Once again, I'm returning to this cross table, 7.5 points. Nothing to write home about pretty much by any player in the field. I didn't mention Vashev Agraf. No, alright, so he scores +1 in this tournament and beats two players, the two tail-enders. I mean, I don't know. I think every player has to work on his chess and change things and reinvent yourself. Well, Caruana did this work and it paid off last year. Vashev Agraf, who seemed to be doing great, I think, in 2017, has been stuck in the past couple of years. I think that Vashev Agraf should go back to his roots and play aggressive, tactical, attacking chess, first chance he has. His game became too dependent on prepared theoretical variations and lost some of its colors. But still, MVL is going to be among the contenders to make the candidates. No, well, Arkady, yeah, well, I mean, everybody wrote him off a long time ago, but he's still there. He plays interesting chess, and no, he's doing stuff, whatever. And this Azerbaijan thing was something that nobody expected him to do, but no, well, whatever works. Well, yeah, MVL sucked at pawn. I don't know. I think he just. I don't think he had a whole lot of confidence going against Carlsen, but still, it was rather strange. Clearly, he didn't get a whole lot going. This quiet English, no, black doesn't have to go crazy like this. B5 gave Carlsen something to work with, and Magnus did the job. Need to find some balance, obviously. Clearly, Carlsen position cannot be taken by storm only because you throw a pawn at him. If it was happening near the white king, but of course it's a tall order to get to the white king in the English. But no, anyway, as I said, well, right now the stars were aligned to favor Magnus Carlsen, but new tournament will come next month, and more tournaments in the summer. No, well, maybe we'll be talking different stuff next time. Yeah, all right, guys. I got more work to do, so sorry, I have to cut it maybe a little bit short. I know in the past I would talk with you guys for 2 hours. Just can't do this today. So, I don't know when I'm gonna catch you next time. I haven't really talked to Leon about our schedules of shows, but good thing is I'm in town. I'm not going anywhere, and for the next until the end of June, well, I should be able to follow all the main events and bring the highlights to you. We'll be very happy to do so. Thank you all. Goodbye.